and my residence address is 6100 Red Hook Boulevard.
Of people associated with Jeffrey Epstein.
Prince Andrew and the former President Bill Clinton have been named.
More are expected.
Jeffrey Epstein was not always a powerful man. He did not come from royalty, politics, or old money. He began as an ordinary person from Brooklyn, New York, someone who slowly climbed into elite circles through intelligence, charm, and calculated relationships. Over time, he transformed himself into a man who could sit beside billionaires, presidents, and princes as if he belonged there. And for years, no one publicly questioned how he gained that level of access. In the late 1970s, Epstein entered the world of finance after a brief period working as a teacher. Despite lacking formal qualifications, he convinced wealthy individuals that he had a rare understanding of money and markets. He presented himself as someone who could protect fortunes and multiply wealth. Slowly, powerful people began trusting him. With that trust came influence, and with influence came access to a world very few ever see. He owned massive homes in New York, Florida, and the Caribbean. He flew in private jets. He hosted parties attended by celebrities, politicians, and global figures. On the outside, everything looked like the story of a self-made billionaire living the American dream. But behind the doors of those properties, according to later investigations and testimonies, a darker reality was forming. By the early 2000s, reports began to surface in Florida that young girls were being brought to Epstein's mansion. Some were teenagers. Some came from difficult backgrounds. According to multiple victim accounts later presented in court, they were approached with offers of money for simple tasks, often described as giving massages. But many said those encounters quickly turned into situations they did not expect and could not control. In 2005, a parent reported Epstein to the police after learning her daughter had been involved with him. That report triggered an investigation that slowly uncovered a pattern. Detectives began speaking to other young girls. Then more came forward, and then more. What they described was deeply disturbing.
Because his face just went like this, and it was like a nod of approval. Ghislaine got me quickly into here's the lotions, here's the oils, we're gonna each take half of his body so you can follow my instructions. It just looked like a legitimate massage.
A system where vulnerable minors were recruited, brought to his home, and allegedly exploited. Investigators gathered statements. They collected evidence. The number of accusations continued to grow. Many believed the case would lead to major federal charges. But in 2008, something happened that would shock people for years to come. Epstein accepted a plea deal that allowed him to plead guilty to lesser charges. He served about 13 months in custody, much of it under a work release arrangement that allowed him to leave during the day. To many, it did not feel like justice. It felt like protection. Questions began to rise. How did someone facing such serious allegations receive such a light sentence? Who negotiated the deal? And why did it seem like the full story was never allowed to come out? After his release, Epstein returned to a life that still seemed untouched by scandal. He continued to travel, continued to socialize, continued to maintain relationships with powerful people. Photographs emerged showing him alongside world leaders, famous business figures, and celebrities. These connections became a central part of the mystery surrounding him. Then there was the island, Little St. James, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands owned by Epstein. Over time, it became one of the most talked about locations connected to the case. Victims later claimed they had been taken there. Some said influential individuals visited the island. These accounts would later become part of court testimonies and public records, fueling global attention and speculation. For years, the case faded in and out of public focus. But investigative journalists continued digging. They reviewed court files, spoke with victims, and uncovered details about the earlier plea agreement. Slowly, the story began returning to headlines. And this time, it was bigger. In 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal charges related to sex trafficking of minors. The case was serious, detailed, and backed by multiple accounts. Women who had stayed silent for years began speaking publicly. They described how they were recruited, how they were manipulated, and how powerless they felt against someone with enormous wealth and connections. For many of them, this was not just about one man. It was about being heard after years of silence. It was about finally telling the truth, and it was about seeking justice that they felt had been denied for far too long. But before the case could go to trial, everything changed. On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. Authorities ruled it a suicide, but the news sent shockwaves across the world. He was the central figure in a case that involved powerful connections and serious allegations. He had information, he had secrets, and suddenly, he was gone. Almost immediately, questions began spreading. How did this happen? Why were there reported security failures? Why did it occur before a full trial could take place? With Epstein gone, attention shifted toward the records connected to his life and investigations. The testimonies, depositions, and legal files that had been collected over many years. People believed that the real truth might exist inside those documents. Over time, through legal proceedings and court orders, some of these records began to become public. In the United States, the Department of Justice, along with federal courts, oversaw the release of certain materials linked to Epstein's cases. These included previously sealed records, sworn testimonies, investigative references, and parts of civil lawsuit documents that had remained hidden for years. These releases did not happen all at once. They came slowly, piece by piece, often after judges decided what could legally be shared with the public. Many of these files were not new evidence, but historical records connected to earlier cases. Still, when they became public, they gave people a clearer understanding of how Epstein operated. They showed patterns, they showed timelines, and most importantly, they preserved the voices of victims who had spoken under oath. Within these documents were detailed accounts from women who described how they were approached at a young age, how they were introduced into Epstein's world, and how they felt trapped in situations they did not fully understand at the time. Their statements formed a crucial part of the case history and helped paint a broader picture of what had been happening behind closed doors. The files also included references to people who had social or professional connections with Epstein. It is important to understand that being mentioned in documents, contact lists, or testimonies does not mean a person committed a crime. In many instances, names appeared simply because of social interactions, meetings, or travel connections. But their presence in official records kept public attention fixed on the scale of Epstein's network. For many observers, the release of these DOJ-linked and court-approved files felt like a step toward transparency after years of secrecy. But even then, many parts remained redacted, especially where protecting victims' identities was necessary. Some information stayed sealed. Some details were never fully explained. What these files confirmed was that multiple victims, across different time periods, had described similar patterns, similar methods of recruitment, similar environments, similar experiences. It strengthened what many had already been saying for years, that this was not random, and it did not happen only once. But the documents also deepened the mystery, because even after the releases, many questions remained unanswered. Epstein was no longer alive to testify. Some investigations had ended, and some parts of the story may never be fully known. After Epstein's death, attention also turned toward those close to him. One of the most significant developments was the case against Ghislaine Maxwell, a longtime associate. Victims claimed she played a role in recruitment and helped maintain the system around Epstein. In 2021, she was convicted on federal charges related to sex trafficking. Her conviction confirmed something many had believed for years, that Epstein did not operate entirely alone, that there were people around him, that there was a structure that allowed everything to continue for so long. For the victims, the files were not just legal documents.
They were proof that their voices were recorded, that their stories mattered, and that what happened to them had finally been acknowledged. Many had spent years feeling ignored or powerless. Seeing the truth slowly come out was, for some, a step toward closure. The Epstein case became more than just a criminal investigation. It became a symbol of power, secrecy, influence, and the long struggle for justice. The files revealed pieces of the truth, but not all of it. And perhaps the most haunting part is knowing that some answers may have been lost forever.